Hi.
Ladies and gentlemen, roosters and hens, and everything else in between, Cock Talk is 47 minutes late, but we're back. And all four of us are back tonight.
We're early if you didn't set your clock back or
Right,
forward or
right.
whatever
Actually,
it's supposed to
Or
go.
are we extra late?
time is relative, and
Or
we know
whatever, Dave.
this.
Damn it.
What even is time?
Yeah. Shit.
And as always, from the Coop Collective, we have the full cast here tonight. I am Tyler at MBF Express. We have our diligently working producer Josh at Grateful Coops, uh, Blake at Waddle Waddle Racing, and the return of Dave at Pecking Order Racing. Gentlemen, I've been talking to you for 45 minutes, but how we doing?
Good, wonderful.
Doing okay,
There we
I
go.
suppose.
Glad to be back.
Yeah.
Little lo-fi version tonight as we get this thing kicking out again. Josh has been working hard to get this set up. Looks like we're there. Besides the copious amount of updates that the the computer made us do, but we are here. Hopefully, we're coming through clear and good to be talking with y'all again. We have quite a bit to get into. Especially the AMA was chock full of some nuggets and some actually long-term possible changes to the state of the game and how it's going to look. So I know this is probably going to be a bit of a refresher for Dave as he's getting himself back into the swing of things. And I'm excited to kind of get into the details here and go a little bit deeper on some of this stuff, but also make sure we're just hitting over exactly what we're looking at, what's coming up, because a lot of it's still very much in flux. But I'm excited by and large for what we have coming.
Yeah. I think from what I've seen, I haven't seen a whole lot other than some things about the pop that I'm curious to see how it's going to play out. So
Yeah, no, a lot of exciting things. There's a lot to go over in the dev blog, so we might as well probably just jump right into this thing.
That's the meat of it tonight. Just make sure that we get a clean show off tonight. Everything works properly, and we can excel from there.
Yeah. So this is the dev blog from just this last week. That'd be November 4th. Good day, all. Hope you're all well and ready for another weekly update from your favorite chicken-themed NFT racing game. Marketplace launch on Monday. Earlier this week, they had their third test of the marketplace with the beta members, and it went exceptionally well. We're now happy with the marketplace in both its functionality and security, so we'll be launching on Monday live for everyone to use. That's tomorrow, people.
sweet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, those marketplace tests all went pretty smoothly. I didn't see anything that really was too thrown off, and everything that they did bring up was changed and edited and whatnot. So I'm very excited for the concept of being able to go on there and really parse through and see the birds for what they are.
Yeah, for sure. Go away.
Did they say, are we going to be able to trade yet, or is it just sell only? Or I guess, could you sell for $0?
Well, it says right here. Let me go on, and users will be able to trade and search chickens on chickenderby.com, making it a lot easier to find chickens with particular criteria such as win percentage or races ran. All chickens will start as unlisted for sale. Oh, yeah, as unlisted for sale, so you will need to list your chicken to sell it. But when you're searching our marketplace, you'll know that it is a chicken that the owner is trying to sell.
But the way they're using trade in that context, like if you look at the next sentence, that they're still available for trade on OpenSea, I think they mean trade as in buying and selling.
Oh, I gotcha.
Trading as stock.
I gotcha. Chickens will still be available to trade on OpenSea. That's great, Dave. So the Halloween hunt wrapped up on Thursday. Is a mad dash for some in the classes. Had some lead. I think there was a couple lead changes there towards the end, wasn't there? Or it's
yeah, more than a few.
Yeah,
controversy on some of them, but everything worked out all right.
You know,
controversy.
Nothing too crazy.
Well, it isn't an event without a little controversy. The hunt is almost over, and it is over, but as there are only a few hours, blah blah blah. When compared to the Oktoberfest in terms of number of race entries, as counting number of races is unfair due to the Halloween having 8 chicken races, Halloween hunt is slightly ahead. This is impressive as the tournament is only open to 41% of the chicken population, so to see the volume maintained shows that these types of formats are viable, so expect another trait limited tournaments in the future. Here's the thing. It's not just the 8 chicken races. It's definitely that you unlock 2-hour limits on birds, because I could sit there and
Yes.
spam those 8
Yes.
bird races all day long with the same 2 birds
In
and spend
fact,
$5 just cycling through. And that's how I ran my boy Blue all the way up to A class, because he's just such a jerk.
It's weird. It was actually a
Right.
bit to my detriment this time around, because as soon as I did get a bird back into its PO, and it was a bit of a struggle on some of these birds, I had birds flat out running better in a higher class than what they usually run at and doing just fine. So I had to kind of recalibrate. But the ones I did want to bring back down, once I got them back in, I would just slam them in the first 2 that I could, because I didn't know when they'd be back. So it's fun though. I liked in the AMA they mentioned that they haven't seen anything in the analytics that's showing that there's like a weird abuse to just being able to throw your chickens in. So it seems like the 2-hour cooldown being gone is here to stay.
It will, and I think it makes sense right now for the number of active users we have.
Sure.
If it's impossible to get into a race because they're filling so fast, okay, it's maybe a different story to rein it back. But until that's the case, it probably does make sense to keep it open.
Yeah, that's a good problem to have. I'll look forward to that time when we have that.
Yeah, it
problem,
allows
right?
people
Yeah,
that have the money to spend the money and not have to wait, and it gets more birds out there running. So
yeah.
Oh, I agree.
All right, Josh, keep it rolling here.
Yep. So there was not time anymore, so it's ended. Top 10 will be getting some wearables, and I have not seen them yet. I've been checking my
Hidden folder.
not my hidden folder, but the chicken wearables page on the Chicken
right.
Derby site.
Right on the website. Yep.
You can do it right on
if I
Chicken
can
Derby.
see anything.
You're right.
Yeah.
Don't go to OpenSea anymore.
Yeah, screw them.
We're done with them.
So the
Basically.
next event is starting this week. They will reveal the full details on Monday, along with a wrap-up of the Halloween hunt. A little tease was dropped about this next event during the AMA, which you can find in the announcements channel, though I expect someone will drop it in the main chat after this. As always, we have some exclusive clothing available for those who participate. Here's a sneak peek of the attire available. Looks like some jockey wear, or probably maybe some fancy. That looks like a real dapper chicken there.
All the chickens will be able to run in this event coming up, but the tease was that there's something that the English mustard chickens will be able to either achieve or unlock or do that everyone else can't. So
I've got a striped one.
Yeah, that'll count. So if you got some English mustard chickens, I actually went through. I was like, do I have any? And I was like, oh, I have 7. Okay,
Just 7?
I'm just 7. Yeah, I don't really like any of them, but we'll see how it goes.
So. A big thing that has been asked for by a number of community members for a number of months now is finally here in some form or fashion. Seasons and badges.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing they discussed in the AMA was planned changes of pecking order and pop. This will be coming in December, and we're still ironing out the details. But here's a general overview of what we're planning. Chicken Derby will now have seasons, each of which will run for 1 calendar month. At the start of each season, every chicken will have the same amount of pop, and their current pecking order will be set for that season. Throughout the season, chickens will gain, lose pop through racing. At the end of the season, the top 20% of chickens in each pecking order based on pop will be promoted up a pecking order.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dave, this is like FIFA Ultimate Team or any of those where
promotion and relegation,
right? And it's as seasons, and then like you move from like level 10 to 9, and you're you move up the pyramid, so to speak. But
and a little extra insight from the devs were like, hey, all these other big sports leagues and whatnot work on a seasonal type relegation promotion, so why not us give it a shot? And they think it actually will address some things. So
so the first season's going to be the toughest.
Yeah, let me finish.
Yeah.
At the end of the season, the bottom 20% of chickens' pecking order based on pop will be demoted. Chickens in the top 20% will earn a badge to display their success, which is saved to the metadata of the chicken. The intent of this is to create more balance between pecking orders. Currently, more chickens are downclassing than upclassing, causing the game to become bottom-heavy. This means S/A races are becoming thin and slow to fill, and the CD races are getting higher and higher caliber birds, pushing out a lot of low-end chickens. With seasons, the number of chickens within each pecking order will become more equal over time. Thoughts, gentlemen?
So
Yeah,
they're
Blake.
still going to move up and down every race. Their pop, right?
Right.
Yes.
So you could have, let's say 4 seasons in, right? Then you got a bird that just tanks it, and he ends up as a 10 pop, and he's sitting there at the top. He's only going to down class 1 to the level 3 at that point, right? That seemed,
Well, it starts
to
over
me,
every season.
I think they
so-
would be better off just eliminating pop altogether, and you're in this tier as you move up.
Well,
classes.
it will in essence, but the pop is still just the way they're going to figure out who is moving up and down. And then once a new season starts, everyone goes back and starts at that same pop again.
Yes,
So,
the pop isn't really the pop anymore. It's a scoring system for how they calculate your season points.
the only time the pop's really going to have any type of major impact beforehand will be this first season. They said they're going to give us plenty of time to know ahead of time to get ourselves ready, but whatever our chicken's pop is when the first season starts, that'll be the PO.
And here's what I'll say though. If they're going to do it that way, they should change the pop. They shouldn't do it +4 for first and -4 for last either then. Right?
How do you see a change there?
Well, it should be more evened out, because at the end of the day, those moving up is not going to really, I guess it would put you in a likely chance to be in the top 20%. But once somebody gets into that top 20% of pop, why would they run again?
Well, they would just have to declass.
Right. Well,
and that's where I have an argument. I just have go ahead, Tyler.
No, fire away. Go ahead. Mine's a little more sprawling down the line. So go ahead.
My first thought about seasons and this whole system was the season end reward, whatever it may be, which we haven't really been given much detail on other than we'll get some badges. And that's one thing. But the top spot or the top 10 in each class, you have to imagine there's some sort of a prize pool or something along those lines of winning that class, winning that season, and advancing. Because one thing's for sure, you need to make winning a class something that people want to achieve, so they're not sandbagging and sticking right in that middle 70%, where they're not quite 20%, top 20%, but they're not losing all the time, and they're just making money right there in that 50 to 70, 75% range, and they just live there. And that bird just lives in that class and lives there because they know how to operate your bird. And that's the thing. You need to make classes, the winner needs to be, it's something that needs to be
here's the thing,
incentivized.
Remember, like the first season, all 90s are going to be going up against hundreds. So depending on, like, if you've got a 94 and you know how to run him really good, I don't know if it's going to matter the first season because you're going to get your ass stomped. You know what I mean?
The first season, we're still going to have classes, so like the 90s and 100s won't be intermixing.
So it's still classes?
We're not all going into B.
Whatever your pop is when the season starts for season 1, that'll be the class you're in. So we'll still have all the same classes when we get started, and everyone will just start at a particular pop and then move throughout the class.
I guess I'm a little confused. So let's say you finish in the top 20%, do you go up to the next level?
You go to C class, and then the top 20% of C class move on, and that's what is supposed to balance everything. But
here's 20% of C class.
Well, it's going to take. Here's the thing.
Confused. Like,
it's
so the top 20% of each class will move up. So obviously, if you're an S class, there's no going up from there. I don't know if they're going to add another super class or something, super class. But
when I read this originally, that's not what I saw it as. I'm not so sure I like that.
But that's in the expanded information from the AMA. That's not actually really recorded here.
Right.
I'm not.
So
The classes no longer make sense at that point.
Well, here's
the
what they're
classes
trying.
are the tiers that you're into.
So hang on. So to my point, though, I don't want to get too far ahead of the chat here because there's some points in the
I
chat.
can't see the chat.
Top 10 of seasons will get big notoriety, it says Sambo.
Yep,
And
I
then
agree with that.
Alriad says, I like Sydney's idea of making those badges desirable. Yes.
Sure.
You have to incentivize winning in that top 20% because people aren't. I mean, a badge is one thing, and notoriety is cool and all, but like people are here to
Doesn't
make
pay the
money,
bills.
right? At the end of the day, and smart people are going to be sticking right in that in between zone. I make money
would
if
like
I'm
to
here.
see-
You know what I
I
mean?
would like to see some type of like tournament, like you said, bonus tournament at the end of the year, something like a tournament of champions, something along that line towards the end that leads up to something bigger. I know Hems has been a big champion for at the end of each season, there may be a mini tournament between those two that are at the top, so you can actually properly, have some type of rush through to declare a real winner. But yeah,
But when
the badges
you guys
themselves,
say the top 10, are you talking about the top 10 in every class now?
yeah, top 10 period,
top
like
10 period
top
in
10
each class.
winners.
Yeah.
So you're paying out 50 winners.
Well, I don't know. There's no details on anything of
But
what happens.
this is
it's just top 20 and bottom 20 advance or drop.
So when it goes to level 2, think about the next season. Now you've only got 20% of birds in D class that are running. If they go up to C class, that's now less than 20% in D class at that second level. I don't think you can have a pyramid type scheme.
But 20% came down to replace them.
Right.
There's another 20% from C class coming down to replace the 20 that went up to C class.
Yeah,
it's an equal trade-off.
Yeah, everything still gets balanced throughout, and
but
that's
they're
kind
just
of
in D and C. They're not. So my understanding is at the end of the season, there's going to be a whole different level tier. Like you're at step 9.
Oh no. The way they're trying to do here is they're just trying to balance the POs better, because at the moment, it actually this all the leaked info that they gave us, not leaked info, they were planning on it in the AMA, stem from me just asking, are Saramas performing the way that they hoped? Are Saramas what they intended to be? And they said they really
According to them, they are.
But there's some issues with where birds are being placed in the POs, and they said it's a much bigger thing than just the Saramas being out of place. Everything's a bit out of place, and because there is that ability to move up and down so quickly because of every single race changing your pop, and then thus possibly changing your PO. They wanted to get something they think is going to set longer term. This might take 3 or 4 months or cycles, if you will, to get us in where we should be. It could be a little crazy the first couple runs here, but they are thinking that this is going to average out a bit more. So, I was thinking like a 99 lac should probably be able to compete in S class, but it really can't.
Right.
But so
even my 100 lac can barely compete in S class.
But it probably should. It just we just need a breakdown that's a little more even. It's something that moves around a little bit more. And really Ranga is the bird that really gets brought up a lot. Ranga is sitting in
it's
D
not
class.
it's not just Ranga. I mean, it's other birds, because it's like I've done it to Tyler. I've texted him. I'm like, dude, do you really think a 99 should be way down in C class, whether it's a lac or not? I mean, come on. And then here I am, like a few weeks later, I've had my 98 Sultan running in B class, and
Sambo says basically an S bird should not be able to D class down to C class, and I do believe in the end it won't be able to. But if this works,
see, this
properly,
is where where the debate, and there are some on the fence that say there should be min pop.
Should be what?
Min pop, like
minimum
a certain level. A certain level bird,
like your bird
can only go so low.
I can speak on this for a second.
I think it's up to the devs to set that within the game, not necessarily set that as a prerequisite of your bird. What I mean by that is they should make it in the game to where that bird can't downclass that much. It comes to a certain point to when they're going to win. To just
that would be sandbag that hard.
Right. And I think that's what they're trying to do, because I know Bachfather has brought it up. I've talked to him quite a bit about minimum pop and what he means by that, basically saying that like a 96 Slackenvelder can't go below a C class. Literally, it won't let it. But what you're saying is the way that if the game is tuned properly, then the game should go the way you're saying.
Right.
Where it
and I think that's their
that
idea anyways. That's the whole point of the pops to begin with. They didn't really want a 99 to drop down that low. Maybe one class if it's a bad 99, but majority of 99 should be an S.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is this: if you've got, so I'm still unsure of what they mean by the 20% and all this. So the cutoff right now at C class is 30, right? That's the starting point of C, right? So when you say the lowest 20% of birds, is that whoever can drop their bird down to the lowest pop, those lowest 20?
So
they're going to go under
it's
30.
A scoring system, so minus plus or negative, right?
Each class is 100%. So the top 20 of that 100% that's sitting in C move on, and the bottom 20 drop down, and that middle 60% remain.
Right. It's going to be based off the end season pop scores.
Right. And then
some seabirds are going to drop down as low as they can to
See, I don't know how you can do that, because you'll have way too many ties. You have to have a scoring system of it's got to be a plus or minus system.
This is why I think
and there'll be a season champ who scored like 500 to 600 points or something like that.
Should be win
and
percentage.
Then there's a season loser who scored negative 400 points or something.
Yeah, it should be based off win percentage.
But
you have to run X amount of races, otherwise you stay in that class.
Well, X amount of races, they did say that in the AMA. X amount, you still have to run. You have to hit a threshold in order to qualify for down class or for promotion or relegation. Otherwise, you just stay stagnant. Like a stagnant bird sitting in B just stays in B.
Crazy J, you're taking away the skill based. If you have the skills to get a bird that low, that's skill 20, and then I'll add 25% of the year. You don't have to worry about that bird declassing hard.
This is based on Sydney saying you'd have to lose races and money for 3 months to get there, and if that's someone
if you're in
to do that, then power to them. Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
I've debated whether or not I even want to run Diablo anymore and just keep him in B and see what happens the first month.
But even what Sydney just said there, you go 3 months to get a bird down there, and then it's just going to be 1 month. And then you're right back up again. So there's really a balancing act that they're trying, like Blake was intimating, that they're trying to create that balancing act just by us racing the birds instead of having to put something like a minimum pop on. Now, if this doesn't work and things get a little shaky, then I do think BAWK has a good idea with minimum pop and making that work in different ways. But I personally, just for the freedom of being able to run a bird, and yes, if your bird goes above and you essentially don't have a bird for a month, that kind of sucks. But we'll have breeding, we'll have lots of birds coming down the line as well. And I feel like there's new birds are going to get popped up that can actually compete.
I have a question.
For a change. I know that's what they're looking for.
So Sydney says one issue in S class is that all the 100 Ramas will still run in the cheap races, whereas in A and B and C and the top birds won't want to race in the cheap ones since they don't want more pop for only a little weeth. I've had this thought in my head for a little while. For the volume that we have racing right now, I think there's too many races per class still. And this is just my thought. I think you cut there's too many to choose from, and I think even still people are being picky because the ARG is kind of funky at times and it doesn't really cycle through, and when the volume's really low it really doesn't cycle through how you want it to. So I've been curious if we would get more volume, or this would be better if there were less choices of races that popped up. If you take right now, there's 2 of each kind of tier right now, right? If you just cut that in half and had one and maybe had 5 or 6 races available in each class, would we have more volume? Or would we have the issue of, 100 Ramas filling all the single races? I mean, you'd have less races in each class, but it would be maybe not have them broken down for really cheap, and then all of a sudden you jump up $2 to $3. Maybe it's 50 cent, $1.50, $3, and then a big one. I don't know. Just
Yeah,
such a suggestion.
Yeah, the only issue I'm thinking there right off the bat is that, okay, now you're kind of forcing people to just go ahead and enter races they really don't want to with birds, instead of being more patient and being able to sit back and actually grab the ones they want. But it could, because we do have a problem where, these races do just sit there. I mean, here we are without a tournament, without an event. Much of nothing's going. There's not a whole lot of incentive to do so. The season should change that, obviously, and I think, the first couple months we're going to see we're going to see a lot of people racing just because it's going to be fun to do it and test it out. But long term wise, yeah, maybe it does make sense. But I know everything they're doing it with the idea of, we want this thing perfected so when we do get a flood, it's ready. So they're not making the changes that really help us this second, which is probably why they took away the cooldowns. That does help us this second. But otherwise, every change they're trying to make here is for the long term.
Here's how I think would solve this. I think that if they went to what I was talking about earlier, a tier like this is what I originally thought it was, like FIFA Ultimate Team, where you move up, you start in the bottom. And here, think about it like this: 5 months are down the road, right? We've now got 5 separate tiers. All birds run against everybody the first season, and then you move them up into the next tier. Now, as the time goes on, there's going to be more and more tiers that have developed.
Mm-hmm.
As if somebody wants to come in and buy 100 perfection, it would start off in tier 1 for a minute, right? For one season, and then move up down the line. So eventually, as time goes on, the more the birds race, there's more incentive. You're going to give that person a chance to win on its way up, rather than buying at the top.
But the 100 is just going to railroad for X amount of time if it's in tier 1.
It's why that's going to incentivize that now how much are those 100s worth? How much are the 99s worth? And down on the line, it's going to raise the value of those, because now somebody sees that, hey, I can start at the bottom of this pyramid and I can win my way all the way up until where my bird's going to be at a spot. It's going to incentivize winning rather than incentivize losing, right? If
it's still only going to be as good as the reward of, why would I want to go to the top tier? Why do I want to be up there? What's my motive?
I mean,
to win a season, to go higher, to deal with.
I think you got to make it something that's, worth it. Because if you're racing that amount of races to get into it, to qualify, first of all, and if you're trying to get into the hunt, it could get a little expensive. I think you got to have some kind of a cash reward.
What if the bottom
top 20%
of each of the races filtered up to the top, so your payouts were a little bit higher as the tiers went up?
Well, here's the thing. For starters, just so it's quick timeout. I don't know if there's any kind of ETH or cash payouts or any extra prizes.
I'm just saying there should be.
But if it's just badges, I'm never getting promoted.
So right now, how much are they taking per race? 10%, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Move that up to the next level.
Yeah, well, there's definitely something there as far as messing with the rake as you move up. I mean, to incentivize
they can pay out more. So why would I want to move up? Because if I enter a 50-cent race and it pays out,
they could keep the same
$6 more.
They could keep the same tier system that they have right now for any other current event, where it's like 30%, 25, 20, 15, and 10 is the classes breakdown. And that should be, I think that should stay consistent. Possibly it should not, not even, what if you broke it down by the class itself? Maybe the class itself prize pool is of all that class's races ran for the month. It gets broken down.
Also, but a lot of those races are going to be event races, and then that's where that prize pool comes from. So you'll be taking. So it would have to be races that did not qualify for or weren't part of the event in order for that to work, because obviously they take money based on just the races for the event, and that's how they pay out in ETH in that regard. So there's a legitimate talking point and an issue here of just like, are badges enough? Yes, they'll be attached to your metadata. They said they won't be NFTs on the side. They'll be attached to the metadata. They will be there attached to the bird. So when you want to breed with a bird or buy a bird or anything, it'll all be there. It'll be like a nice little history of that bird for you. But is that enough? is that really enough for you to decide that I'm going to
No.
take my bird into the 20% and run up? So
And no,
I am curious what else is there, or what else they have planned in that regard.
I'll clarify what I think Riley was saying, what I was talking about earlier. No, I was saying, like, if you bought a bird that is 100 that hasn't been tiered up yet, right? It would incentivize those. If somebody's already tiered up and you bought that bird, you're buying a bird in whatever tier it's in at that point. But yeah, I think seasons are a start, but I don't know if the way it's doing is gonna mitigate those. I mean, high 90s dropping down to the lower classes.
Yeah,
I don't think
and
it stops that.
I think there's still a few too many gaps in the info to fully determine. Like,
that's fair. Yeah.
Well, I almost feel like the pop system is this is my interpretation. The pop system, the number that you see next to your chicken, 59, 34, 10, 12, whatever, is gone. It's either just going to be A, B, C, or D. And then the next thing is going to be your season points total for
it'll be gone in December, basically.
Yeah.
You know, it matters now for placement, but
and then there will be a leaderboard, and then it'll be the points that you get for a season. It's just like racing. Think of it just like racing, race cars.
Yep.
Season,
but
season points.
Why are they incentivized to race up in those higher, like horse racing, for example? Why is an owner incentivized for entering their horse in the Kentucky Derby? Because of the stakes.
Yeah, bigger purses.
Right.
But the entry fee is also bigger in those.
Well, this is where I think we have, you know, as Dave said, there's just those gaps in the knowledge right now as far as figuring it out. But you're right, because that was the first thing I still thought of. Like, I said badges to Josh when I was in the AMA, he didn't, and he goes, badges. And I know what part of that is just, you know, pain
Top Shot
from
flashbacks.
the Top Shot badges.
Badges are gonna save us, fam.
And they didn't.
No.
So I get that. I know that was part of the problem. But again, the badges matter. Showing your birds a winner matters, but in the end, people are there's so much data that we can look at for these birds. We know what the winners are. We'll see that. So having that attached there is a nice part of it. But yeah, I would like to see something tiered up that becomes more incentivized. We've always said that. Sid has talked about incentivizing higher priced races, and, you know, incentivizing
for the
actually climbing up.
Pop
the whole bit. Yeah.
I mean, you have to incentivize birds moving up in the class. And yes, naturally, there will be a top 20% regardless if the birds all qualify. And that's another story. How many qualifier races are there going to be? And what do you do with the people? Because I had this Alrad was talking earlier. He had and I had this thought the other day as well. Birds that could just sit there and run a couple expensive races here and there and not quite hit the qualifier mark every month and just live in that class. And it's not wrong. And that's an exploitation, I think, I feel. And he kind of had a solution. I can't really read back. I think he's talking about that their qualifier races cut in half each month, that they don't qualify, so they eventually do move out. But yeah, it's
so what if every time you met your qualifier, it dropped down 10% the next season?
Go on. What do you mean? Like
that? Well, that would mean, so like, let's say they start off with the first season, the qualifier is 100 races.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
everybody
about this. Yeah, they were saying
second season though, if you hit that 100, your next season qualifier is 90 races.
Yeah, the chat was talking about there's some kind of decay on that, because that's kind of a necessary thing. Otherwise,
so
yeah.
If you go to 99, well, guess what? You got to hit 100 next season. Or maybe they could even do it more, but make it to where you can only go as low as 50%. And
however, if you can run that many races, but if you can run that many races without the fear of dropping down, then that's better for you. Like that's the one.
But they're going to tier up. So after the second season, they're going to have to hit, but they're in that second tier. If they try to do the down class bit, or try to stay in that level, and they don't hit their required race mark for that bird, then it resets and they have to hit 100 the next time.
Yeah, I think, as we're kind of throwing out all these ideas and trying to figure out where this is going to go, I really do feel like even if this works, even if we are looking at this 6 months from now and this was a success, the sixth season, if you will, is going to be very different than this first season. There's going to be a lot of little tinkering that's going to come from this. The devs have said they very much want this to be a collaborative with the community to make sure we are actually addressing this and fixing a problem, because they said in the AMA, I think it was Apex, said that there is just a much bigger problem right now than just Saramas, than just the different spots of these birds. The idea that there are some perfections that just kind of can't hang, oddly, like 97 Saramas is one of them. We have some 99 lax can't get it done. It's a very weird kind of
Right.
rip through, whereas like 98 lax kind of have a sweet spot. So I really do think this first season is going to be madness. I think we all know that. But the next couple, we're going to start almost, I think there's going to be just a total data shift in what we think, where we think we can run, or what birds we think we can run against. And things are going to start feeling like, in the end, I really hope D class just feels like it opens up, or anyone can feel like they can run a bird. Hell, I have a
Yes.
Sarama in D class right now. I don't know how, but he's in there. Like it shouldn't
Because
happen.
you suck.
Yeah, it was the tournament. It was a filler bird that I just filled for my other birds, and it lost a lot,
But
it got all the way on D class.
But I
So it
feel
shouldn't
like
happen
90,
that.
91 Saramas should be in D and C class. Like that's where
no, because they're better. Like they've said that. Like
I
they
They're
don't.
supposed to be good.
Yeah, they don't have a
But-
boost because they're inherently better.
Like if we ever want their floor to separate from the other heritage, you need the 90 and 91 to still stay higher than
They should be
C and
competing
D.
in B class.
Because I have 90 Ramas that can beat 99s. Like it's crazy. 99 lax, 99 dorks. Like it doesn't happen often, but it can happen. So the Rama is the weird bird in this regard. Is they, as I said this on the past episode, I don't know which one it was, but they were. I really wanted to know, like, are the Saramas performing the way they hoped? And they said yes. So there's something off with the way we're running these birds, and I think they've identified that here. So we can take all the stabs we want, but until we start seeing this actually enacted, I don't think we really have a clue if this is going to be really successful or not. We need to see it in action and something happen with it. As Sid says, the 90 Rama should be a seabird. Yeah, I agree. I think that makes perfect sense to be sitting in C, probably not D.
I would.
I
still
just
lean more
there's some
towards a
really
B bird.
bad ones out there that I think if they
But if like C class, if the 99 lax can't get the C class anymore, then the 90-91 Rama can succeed in C class. That's the whole issue, is that they want to make it hard for your birds to get that shouldn't be in lower classes be there. And then, because in the end, I don't know if 99s can't succeed in S class, and S class is just 100s. That's kind of a weird thing to me. I feel like that's way too niche if S class is just 100.
S class should be 100 through 97s, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, 90, at least have a shot.
And
yeah,
I don't think 100 dork should go any higher than B either.
But what do you do with
100 dork? I have 100 dork that wins an S, like consistently.
Yeah, I don't think they should be up there. I think that they should be.
But they can win with the dork being on their right terrain, running their exact right race. They absolutely can win up there. So if you leave a 100 dork in B, then they'll kill everybody.
Right. I just feel like there needs to be enough incentive between moving up a class and the balance there to where birds that need to stay in like C or D, that it's still profitable for the, you know what I mean? There needs to be a balance. There needs to be an incentive to move up so I can make more money, if that is the case once we get to seasons, if it's an option. Don't know, just speculation, but that's what I'm saying. If there needs to be that incentive there, but there needs to be the balance that you can stay in there and still compete.
We
and
also
still
have food
make
and
some
farming.
money. Right.
And I'll be very curious to see what kind of benefits you can get from having birds in higher classes because of food and farming. So there's that part of it too that we don't quite know yet. In the end, I mean, we there's just gaps within the data we don't know. As Dave said, I think that makes perfect sense. It's still fun to speculate, and we will. But I think at this point there are enough things that are enticing me about this that are kind of exciting. I'm excited for the fact that you can just run a tournament carefree now.
Yeah.
You don't have to
That
worry about
sounds
how
fun.
many
Yes.
down class races. Like the amount of down classing I did in this past tournament was mind numbing. But somehow oddly, this was such a weird tournament that I wasn't negative, even though I tried to down class so much. But still, it's the fact that we'll actually have a chance to just run our birds outright. And you know what? You might not want to go up, but if you want to win that tournament, and that means you got to go into the top 20% to do that, then those are the breaks. That's the give and take that you have to decide. Am I going to pump my bird through this tournament full well knowing it's going to put me in the top 20% or not?
I just feel like the qualifier needs to be a low number. Like it's like,
Relatively,
20 races for them. Like if you hit 20 races, you're qualified for the season, whether you race or not. Now, then that's up to you if you really, you're qualified, but then you need to manage
Depends
your
on the
bird if you
point
want to stay in
system,
there.
though. If it's pop based, then I don't think so. I think the higher. If it's a point based system, yeah, 20 is fine. But because
I still don't think you can have a pop based system
races,
at all, because there will be way too many birds that'll have 49 pop or
it
39
says based
pop.
off pop though. That's what they had in their little thing.
Pop might get reworked. That's something we don't know.
I
They
don't
haven't mentioned that, but it could get reworked. We know that is something I could absolutely see in 6 months from now. Pop is completely different because they realized, okay, this system is working, but we need to tweak the way that the birds actually get points based on the actual races they're running. So,
well, because
I
for
guess
seasons
if
they might need
let
to
it run up. If it runs all the way up to 110, you're in the top whatever percent. But then
you
again,
might need to let people go below 0, because otherwise there can't be a ceiling or a floor in a season mode like this.
But in a seasonal mode, I feel like it's got to be a points-based system. You need a point. It's a points champion. You know what I mean? That's the season. Points champion.
Which is still fine.
Even if we all start at 100 and you can run down or up, like whoever runs the highest is going to be the highest. You just don't want 10 birds all stuck at the ceiling or 10 birds all stuck at the floor and you can't sort out who's first and who's second.
My concern is this. You set it low at 20. If your bird's already in that low end, once you hit 20, you're not competing with the top. What is the incentive to keep that person to race more than 20 races? To keep filling races? We don't want to, if we set a limit, to me, once that limit's reached, the lower it is, the less that those races are going to start to fill until the next season starts.
Oh, that's fair. That is fair. Although there's still adversely, there's going to be a lot of people sitting around that 20% mark at the top. They're going to be working hard to get themselves back down. And maybe, but then if they drop a tournament, that's the thing. When they drop a tournament during a season, it's going to be kind of crazy, because if they decide they're going to run their tournaments in the last 2 weeks, in the last 2 weeks of the season, you now have a business decision to make. Like, am I going to go after this tournament, or am I going to be happy with my bird staying in its class?
So I've thought about this. At that point, do you separate event races from actual races so it doesn't affect that kind of thing? Like if you had a tab that says you click on the Halloween tab and there's all the Halloween races, but they don't affect your season because you're not racing for the season at that point. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, before this even popped up, I actually, before the AMA happened and we were just running the Halloween race, I actually had a thought of just what if tournament races didn't count for pop? That would just keep you where you need to be. And then when you need to down class, you can down class if you needed to, if you're racing otherwise.
This last 8 race tournament should not have affected pop for sure.
It's done some weird stuff. Our data is going to be all over the place. That's for sure. Because,
I think, also the reason it had to is volume is crazy low right now. So, I mean, you can't.
Well, that's the thing. You can't split stream it with the amount of racing we have going on. Like if I'm trying to do racing for a season and everybody else is trying to race for an event, I'm going to be struggling to get any sort of volume out of things.
Anyways, I think we've talked enough about seasons.
We need more info.
Because the next topic, and these are the badges. Yep. Crazy.
Those are badges.
They need some love.
The first iteration,
but they need some love. Yeah,
the first iteration of them. We'll be all right. Fusion. So, fusion design for the fusion mechanic is in progress. As discussed in the AMA, you will have an option to lock some, but not all, of the traits from 2 chickens you're fusing. Though this is an option. This is optional, and there will be a cost associated with doing this. Also, the original 33,333 chickens were always intended to be the only spicy chickens. Therefore, when you fuse 2 of these together, the resulting chicken will move down a stock and be robust.
Yeah.
As chickens are fused or eventually bred, certain traits and the ability to pair desirable traits together will get stronger. Therefore, whenever chickens are bred, the stock of the new chicken gets lower. This is a balancing mechanic so that while people can create strong chickens with highly desirable traits, the stock of that line will be lower over time. So if you fuse a chicken 3 times, you're just dumping that thing down the stock line.
Where this is, I read this, and the only thing, because correct me if I'm wrong, when you fuse 2, you're going to lose 1. You're only going to end up with 1 bird, right?
Yep.
So there's no longer 33,333 spices because there's 1 less.
Correct. Yep.
This is why I don't think they should.
No, there's 2 less. You killed 2 spices.
There you go.
Robust.
Perfect.
Well,
there you go.
Okay.
Perfect. So what's the difference though between this and breeding, other than breeding doesn't kill the spicy?
That's it. But also you can lock some things in, and I like that.
Right. And now for starters, the locking things in, if anyone hasn't listened to Foul Language this past week, they got deep into this one and they brought us some interesting points on this. And the main thing that popped up was just, these spicy chickens. Some of us went out and bought some very rare stuff on purpose. Mm-hmm. And we did it because they're a 1 of 30 or they're a 1 of 5 or hell, some were a 1 of 1s.
I meant it.
And if you can just go and do that and grab them, and then fuse 2 together, and now you have one that's a spicy, it doesn't really help the stock of that original spicy chicken. You're actually now making that rare chicken less rare, which isn't great. The whole point of fusion is to cut down that stock and still make things a little more customizable. I think that's what they're going for with this, is that with fusion, it's going to cost money, it's going to cost something that they've been saying there, they've been hinting at, but you'll be able to lock some things that will give you a more predictable chance at a chicken, where breeding is probably going to feel a little bit more like a scrambled reroll.
So it's kind of weird. I asked this question the other day, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to me this reads as chickens are fused or eventually bred, certain traits and the ability to pair desirable traits together will get stronger. So you're telling me that as they go down the generations, the boosts that we see, or like the white beak boost or the terrain boost or the machete boost or things like that, are going to get better and stronger as they're bred out and fused and down the line. But the only catch is you're lowering the stock.
But would that matter then? Now, to me, then what that would mean is that what's the bottom stock?
Bland.
Yeah, that's going to be the best chicken.
But it won't, because the overall chicken will have gotten worse. But
how?
The
traits itself
get stronger.
Well, so then, at that point, do you take a bland and breed it with a spicy?
But what does that spit out? A bland, probably.
But even then,
but is it a good one?
But if that bland is kicking that spicy's ass because of all of its boosts, why would anybody want a spicy?
But that bland's probably going to have one very, very narrow use case.
Oh, don't our spices already have very, very narrow use case?
No.
Yeah. Well, no, not once.
Maybe if you get down to like your 90 dork, they get pretty narrow. But
so it's worth going over it. Dave. It's worth going over it because it's in the tutorial.
We mostly have dorks, Blake.
Spicy chickens are generally stronger, but not always so. The stock is only one of the factors that will determine a chicken's performance during a race. Breeding smart, you can create offspring that are as stronger than their parents. So
yeah, we're gonna have. Sorry to bulldoze you, but we're gonna have some monster Crispies out there, and possibly some 100 Crispies out there, or tenders.
But the bland chicken, now Blake's point, that bland chicken might be a badass in the sense that everything lines up, but there are still some things like consistency we don't know yet. And maybe a bland bird just has maybe a bland bird has a chance to just roll an absolute crap. And it's like, no matter how great the boost is, no matter how well you place that bird, it's a bland bird and it's got the consistency roll that'll give you just a terrible outcome.
It'll definitely be interesting.
You know, the more I think about it, why would we incentivize lower racing birds to be better than our spicy birds? Why
for breeding? That's all.
Yeah,
breeding,
but here's the thing:
the spices will always be the best.
This all ties back into the
end of the day,
also. Because if you have that pyramid system, at some point through the pyramid, the spices are going to be filtered to the top, and the lower ones, the blands, crispies, blah, whatever, would fill the bottom in an ideal situation. The way that they're rolling it out now, we're going to have the bottom bred 10th generation up there at the top, all mixed in.
Possibly, yeah.
And so where is the value of the spicy at that point?
I think
it's value.
At that point, the value of the spicy becomes resetting a genetic line.
Yeah.
So the
breeding,
horse game has sort of seen this where third and fourth generations are actually turning out well-bred to be the best. But to start those family lines, you absolutely have to have the genesis in their case. So if it's done right, even if the spices start to get surpassed in racing, you will still need them to start the genetic lines to make those monster racers.
So where the value in lies is the fact that the X spicy bird has bred 20 winners. And so there's the value. Is it
everybody wants to get with that bird?
And they said
sperm is the value rather than its legs.
And there's not a decay on breeding. There, if done properly, there's actually an uptick. So that's the nice part of that too. You know, as we can't ignore this shit. I see, you know, Sarama, a new breed from Malaysia that was designed for racing, a new breed that kind of makes you wonder, are these Saramas the ones that are going to be absolutely kicking out the badass ones later down the line? Not necessarily creating Saramas. That could be anything depending on what you're doing it with. Not to mention, as Crazy Jay said, they did confirm that if you put two 100s together, you're not guaranteed a 100.
I like that. I hope it's a dice roll that you
if
can
you do
get
a
100.
90 and a 90 to 96, you're not guaranteed a 93. Like, it's not going to cut the middle of it. Like, so there's still
percentages.
There's absolutely
depends on what you breed it with.
So there's going to be some birds that might be 92s that all they do is consistently spit out 96s and up.
It could be. They could be the breeders.
Now here's the thing:
racers, but they can breed. Yeah.
Now here's been my thoughts just in the last few minutes, and you know, we've always said like, well, if the bird's a shit bird, maybe it's just a breeder. But do you think the consistency that we see with racing our birds could translate into consistency of what we see with breeding down the road, whereas the inconsistent birds don't really churn out that great of a breed down the line, or have a high rate of churning out, like say Ranga? You know, it's I don't know, I'm not saying Ranga, but any bird that's like a super U, right? That's super inconsistent. It's either first or 12th constantly. You don't know what you're going to get, first or 12th. And then that's the same thing. It translates into breathing. You not know what you're going to get. Now you see the Saramas are all A-shaped. They're rather consistent. They usually stick to 4th to 5th place a lot, and maybe they'll spit out consistent birds. And that's like what to Tyler's point of a new breed, and that's how the generation starts, and that's where they start making monsters, the second generation and third generation of Sarama, where it's like, holy shit. That 92 is
the best way to keep us on our toes in this game is not for us to be able to just go back to our spices, put them in a race and win. You know, to know that we have to, even though we have these spices, to go through and be like, all right, I've found something that works here. So it still goes back to that point where you asked Blake about like, what's the point? Why would I fuse instead of breed? I think that's the point of the locking of the traits here. I know, as I mentioned before on foul language, they were very worried about the idea of locking and how much you can do that. Dropping them down to robust, I think, is key there. And then obviously, if you do robust, you're dropping down probably again.
If I'm fusing spices, I don't really want to get past that robust stage. So I want to. I'm like, my thinking is like, I want to be real smart with my fusion with any spices. I only want to do it one time, maybe two. But then you take that risk of going to the next generation after robust.
Yeah.
And then you've depleted that, and all you're doing is locking in the traits. I mean, I'm okay doing a couple spices to get robust, but I don't know if I'd take it like a step or two even further.
Fuse.
The thing is, the point of fusion is there's 33,000 birds, and there's birds that are not meant to be good racers, and there's a reason for that. And the stock,
but
once it goes down, what?
Well, breeding, farming,
but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
if you fuse it with other bad birds, but not necessarily. But here's the thing: if you fuse it two bad birds together, I feel like you should get a better bird in the outcome.
Bad bird.
Yes, a better bad bird, but still, it's a better bird in the end. And then, it's better than the other two overall. So you lose the two previous, and now you've got a new better bird in the supply, whether it's a generation removed or not.
Yeah, that's going to be a math question,
so
right?
You do get to pick. They said you can pick two traits.
No, it doesn't say two. It just says
we don't know
some.
That. It says,
but not all.
We'll give all details.
And it's going to cost moolah.
Yeah. We just know that the locking's on the table in some fashion.
I mean, I'm all for it, because like if people want to fuse their alien eyes and pirates and all that stuff, that's just going to make the spices that you don't fuse that much more rare. Anything like that's got a rare talent or a rare trait, it's only going to go down if people fuse them all.
And originally we thought that they were just eliminating. It's like, two spices will create one spicy, so you're cutting the stock by one, but no, we're cutting it by two. So the spicy stock cuts, and then that's the thing. They said how fusion and stock works. They're going to let us know once the final design is completed. So like, how quickly are we going to start seeing the other, like the tenders, the fresh, the crisp, out there? Because if you go ahead and fuse two robust together, that's probably going to give you a fresh.
Yeah. So So what if you fuse a robust and a spicy together?
Right.
Probably get a fresh.
You might get a fresh. You might get a robust. Maybe there's.
I feel like you'd get a fresh, but I don't know.
I hope it knocks you down from the lowest one and does the same in breeding.
Yeah, that would make sense, because obviously the fusion here is their first little tester into the breeding.
Because while you want to incentivize it, you also want to de-incentivize it to where you don't, because you can't just keep getting better as you go down in stock. And that's where my fear is like, if you fuse a bunch of these birds and there's like super monsters that are blands, it has to have a negative aspect as that's where I was saying there's a balance there of like,
mistakes will be made.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to watch, but it's going to happen. Yeah.
If you run that pyramid down to its like conclusion, I'm trying to make a monster bland. I need to fuse 32 spices down into one bird. Like, how good would that bird have to be to offset everything that I've lost by doing that sort of funnel?
It's a really good point.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe it just spits out monster bred birds, so you breed it with the spicy. But what does that give you? Does it give you another bland? That's where that question comes in. Does it give you another bland, or does it somewhere in does it spit out another robust? I don't know, because that's where it's got to make sense. Because if you're doing this right and you want the traits to get stronger as you keep fusing and keep lowering the stock, but the boosts are much better, you're going to want to breed with that bird because the boosts are outstanding over any of the spicy generation, right? So
how are we going to be able to tell just by watching the races, like what's a bland or a lower level? Is there going to be some type of differentiator between?
Well, for starters, I really do think that they should not have any other birds that are not spicy have matching comb and wattle. I mean, that's an easy one right there.
But is that from fusion too?
Sure. Yeah, because it'll be a.
How do you know what bird's been fused versus bred?
Yeah, I mean that's
so
the thing.
I don't.
They're gonna have to have that.
So Sambo just dropped this in the chat. Hang on.
Spur.
He goes, I'm buying 100 Dork and a 90 Sarama, and I'm locking in the Perf and Heritage respectfully. Fuse, rinse, repeat.
Yeah,
now, I don't know if that's going to spit out.
You can lock in.
Right. I don't know if you'll be able to do that and spit out 100 Rama
But you won't be able to
time.
lock in Heritage.
So
or
those should be two of the things you can't lock in. You should be allowed to lock in visual traits.
Right.
And maybe talents.
And it's a lottery system with the perfection and Heritage.
Yeah, or if nothing else, what I was thinking was obviously the rarer you go up on anything, the more it's going to cost, to be able to lock that trade in. If you want to lock in Blue Comb, that probably doesn't cost anything. It's probably very minimal to lock in Blue Comb and Waddle. But we go way up to the really ultra rares and whatnot, it should cost more. And I really do feel that no matter how much you pay, there should only be one that you can lock in from the rare level.
And here's the other thing I was thinking of too. That would also not so much de-incentivize it, but this would kind of help with keeping the rarity, not the rarity, but like, do you every time say that there's only like 160 black holes, right? Spices, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And say every time, say someone wants to fuse a few of those, I think do you think it should get more expensive each time that trait gets locked in? As the supply gets lower, it should be more expensive to lock that in.
An interesting
fusion.
Mechanic, right? That if there's only 10 of something in existence, it should be incredibly expensive to lock in.
That's what I'm saying. As the supply depletes, say that there's 300 eye patches and you fuse 50 of them, does that price increment up as it gets rarer? I would be curious to see if that would be the case. Mm-hmm. I would too. Yeah. I think it should increase. So
because it sets a sliding scale already for why a common talent costs less to lock in than an ultra rare talent, why a common trait costs less to lock in than an ultra rare trait. Mm-hmm. And it gives you a sort of a logic for why that makes sense, and it's not just at random.
To that same point, if you're fusing two Saramas together, it should be more expensive there as well.
Well, if they let you lock in Heritage, it should cost more to lock in the rarer
Heritage. If you're
fusing
two Saramas, though, it's going to come out of Sarama, right?
Right. It should.
It's not going to come out of anything else. But that should be more expensive than me breeding two Dorks. Or me fusing two Dorks.
Now, the only thing worth mentioning here is that with the fusion, it is Dr. Droob and his test tubes. That's that little test tube chicken we saw in there.
Mm-hmm.
And because fusion isn't a simple science, breeding's a simple science. We've done that. We understand what putting, two sets of DNA together, and you're going to get something that kind of looks like it on the other end. But
the daddy chicken and the mommy chicken.
The fused bird should have like a third eye or something.
Well, here's the thing, like
maybe front spur, something that sets it off in the
there
races.
Might just be a chaos factor within all this that we don't quite know yet, because you are taking two birds and splicing them together and putting them into a green test tube to grow. Like, you can have fun with that narrative, with that story you're telling.
Is there going to be a bunk fusion?
Chaos? Yes. Something.
My
chaotic.
Chicken has a foot instead of a head. What happened here?
I don't know about that, but maybe this
it'll cartwheel instead of run.
Two beaks.
But I do think, like, in my ideal world, fusion costs more and is more predictable. Breeding costs less and is more random.
Yes,
I think that's
right.
They get them sort of set up right, but nothing was 100% predictable.
But I think that's the idea. So when we struggle with the idea that they're going to let us lock traits, I think that's where it comes down to. It's like, all right, if you really want to take your two birds and not only two becomes one, so there's your first attractor, and then we drop down to whatever stock it is to a lower one, that's your second, and it's going to cost more, and and it's still random, and there's still some random there, even though you're controlling it. There's enough things there, I think, now that should probably take those that were a little bit worried about the locking and whatnot and be like, yeah, the risk is assumed and you're paying for
I think you still need to be smart, just as smart as breeding with your fusion. You can't just slap two Dorks together and expect it to pop out a monster that's going to terrorize D-Class. I think you still have to calculated thing, like take an alien eye, or like, if I want to take a lizard eye bird and pair it up with Devo, and I want to lock in the talent and lock in the cosmetic of this bird and mesh them so I get that boost. I mean, I feel like that's something
Sydney brings up a good point.
Get.
I think that the whatever you don't lock in with fusion should be a complete dice roll. With breeding, right? You're breeding those genetics together. it should come out 50-50, one or the other.
But here's my question. If you're fusing a bird with another bird and they have the same eyes, wouldn't you think that smashing it together it would have the same eyes?
No, that's bred. You're breeding.
Maybe that's a chaos factor.
You only put one type of eye into the test tube.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's got.
That's what I'm saying, Dave. In science, you're only putting one variable into the test tube, and it should come out with that same variable in the end.
No, you wouldn't necessarily. It depends on what's in the green juice.
Yeah, what's in the juice. I mean, that's the chaos factor.
Very unknown variable.
Who knows? That's possible. Like that's where it could get a little fun. But yeah,
that's what I think that to me. And a lot of our ideas seem too close to breeding. I think breeding and fusion should be separate entities. I do like the idea of breeding or the fusion being the higher cost with the But really, if you're only able to lock in one max, I think is the way to go.
Only if that camel came out with a leather jacket and aviators.
Sambo's like, what if we fuse 2 spices and got a camel? Now that's interesting.
Sorry, Blake.
other animals. The other animals are coming. Who knows?
You never know.
Probably can't do that.
That'd be weird.
But that's that. I think we kind of locked in something there based on what Dave said, where it's like more predictable, but more costly, less predictable, but costs a little bit less with the breeding and whatnot. They both have their own ways of working, but I like the duo there. And then of course the spices. The truth is, we'll all fuse our spices. Well, not all of us, but a lot of us will because we're degens. But we're definitely gonna
fuse a couple.
We're definitely looking at our fresh and crisp and being like, what's tender at this point?
Because like I've got two door. Hear me out here. No, I've got my 99 Dorking devolution, and I've got a 90 or a 90 or 91 lizard eye dork. They're the same color, different comb and waddle, but I kind of want that eye pairing.
You know what you know the.
I'd hate to get a 90 out of that. Oh, that'd be bad.
You know the fire you're playing with there. You know the fire.
I would breed there, like.
You probably should.
Yeah, probably.
That's what I'm saying.
Breeding still a year away. Like, can you wait that long? Can you resist? Because Josh can't.
But here's the
full
thing.
degen, man.
Like, I wonder if you throw 2 just 90 bland, whatever, plain ass dorks into the fusion.
Common. Yeah.
Can you get an alien eyes that pops out?
Probably
can you get that random dice roll? Can you? Is there any bit?
Man,
I hope if you put 2 pieces of shit into the blender, you just get
a slightly better piece of shit
back.
Just a bigger piece of shit.
If it's in there, it's gotta be minute. It's gotta be like a once a season at most, maybe, of everyone doing it.
What's that?
Maybe
fusion.
Somebody has to win the Powerball.
Upgrading,
right?
Well, they did say you gotta earn a token who did say that? Maybe you gotta earn a token to get it. Was that mentioned in the AMA?
Yes, fusion will be based on having a token.
Yes.
So so I'm not sure if that came up before or after, and they are exploring the idea of it being race centric, but also possibly comboed with how many you own. So
you can't come in off the streets and buy a few birds and be like, I'm gonna mash these stupid things together. No.
But if you have the races, then maybe you've earned it, and then you can do it. So
and then you can mash those stupid things together.
Mash them together. Yeah.
That's where babies come from, kids.
Yeah. Mashing
things together.
Anyway,
so done yet?
I
No.
think so.
I mean, we knew this was gonna get hairy with the whole talk of seasons and a week to marinate on that and fusion. The discussion. I mean, it still boggles my brain.
And it's all just vague enough.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like it. I miss these tinfoil sessions.
No, it's the good stuff.
It is. So, to the questions from the development blog, this is from Anonymous. Could you ever facilitate satellite races like poker tournaments have? This would be a pathway to get higher cost races full and build some excitement, turn 40 cents into $200. And yes, they'd very much like to do something like this, but they're a very complicated feature that require a lot of front end, back end, and smart contract work. But they're certainly on the cards for us to deliver in the future as we recognize the potential of offering these.
Yes. So if they had actual heat style tournaments, they could do something like this to where,
Yeah.
you know, you've got to
8 birds for sure too. Top 3 advanced.
You got to qualify for this event, and it's
or top 4 advanced to this pool.
Total. Right, but those are not paid, so those are paid by whatever up front.
Yeah, well, maybe there's a tournament or
you could do that daily.
Satellites where only people with badges get in.
I mean, and you could do that. Badges. I mean, you could do that daily. Seriously, you could have 3 heat races. You could have a 2 semi races leading up to the main event and a main event at the end. Boom, done. That's what 6 total races.
Yep.
Yeah.
Easy.
Real easy on paper.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're right to point out the amount of contract work.
Actually,
listen, Dad.
Put those
listen, Dad.
forward into the next
Everything's
day, right?
easy. You can do it all in one day.
I've ran events like that on paper. It's actually really annoying.
Yeah, but to automate it is even harder.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, to build the tournament software is one thing.
I think
contracts do it all for you.
Right. I think at its last point, like I kind of tying that point all together. You know, the things they can do with this game are endless, and they're open to it. And we just got to get this PO locked down properly, and a few little other metrics that make this game sustainable and working. I love that they've pushed off food until next year, and they're going to focus on optimization and these every move so far we've seen has worked. And then of course there's the insane land and food and crops and all that's coming. So
I'm officially team no pop and team all tiers. That's what
I think here's the thing I even said to BAWK. I was like, I'll try to get min pop on here a little bit more, and we went a little off the rails, so I didn't quite give it the platform I was hoping to at least throw it out there, because I think it has some credence to it. But
no pop,
here,
no pop.
We're definitely gonna have this set up for a couple months. This and what's coming
it's fine.
here.
We'll let it crash and burn, and then we'll start all over. I'll tell you guys again. And
I don't know. I feel like it can.
I'm team. I like the
listen
system. Screw you
on
guys.
paper.
I'm happy about this.
To me, on paper, when I look at this, it works in my head.
I love seasons.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If here's the thing,
are we back into seasons again?
Yes, because I feel like it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the birds are going to advance at the same rate in each class. So the top 20 of each class will move up, the bottom 20 will move down, the rinse repeat of each month. And yes, there will still be those birds that live in each class, but I just don't see them staying there long enough. You know, if they're winning, they're going to move up eventually. And if there's a system in place that's going to
tournaments, satellites,
exactly,
things here
what
and
they
there,
really should do is take all the birds, like I said, combine them together, take the top half even, and move them into the next tier. So now you get the lower half and the top half, and then the next season you take the top half of each and move them up.
I don't know. Is that too much though? Because I still feel like there's still birds that I feel like you want them to stay in a class. Exactly. Yeah. Some birds should just live in a class because
some birds are just B birds
or D birds.
Right, but they're eventually gonna go up to B.
And I'm gonna go to A and C every other month though, if half the birds are moving.
Right. But if you have a bird that's like 75% in that, like, oh, good.
I don't think I'm vocalizing. Like, I don't think I'm explaining.
Yell it louder.
No, I don't. I don't know. I'm not explaining it right, because there's no way to really down class in my system once you get up to the next level. I mean, you can, but there's no incentive to down class.
But we're not doing your system. So
what do you mean?
But on that note, I do believe that's the point of this one, is that they actually don't want there to be this like crazy movement from some of these birds. They want the birds to basically probably pivot back and forth between two, and some of them, you like, if you're at a 70% range, you should be pretty profitable. Like, you should be doing a good job if you're in B class. If you're 70% of the pop, I'm assuming you're managing you're managing your entries the way you should be. That's totally on you. But in theory, your bird should have every chance to be profitable if it's at the 70%, and it just stays in B, and it's there again.
But here's go ahead. Yeah. Finish. Sorry.
That's it.
I'm bulldozing tonight.
No, it's all right. It's just
wine.
that basic idea that there are birds that fit into a spot and then they stay there. And if they have a huge month, or they do really well in a tournament, maybe they go up once, they have to come back down again. But I'm really hoping that this all gets sorted out in such a way where everyone is kind of racing where they should be. And now it really comes down to a game of skill, because it's not about, oh, you know what, everything's perfect for this bird, but I'm going up against 99s and 98s and I have a 90 Serama. So can I really compete here? You should be able to. You should have confidence to enter that race when you've identified it. But that's not going to happen if the competition is too strong.
I feel like the fear of the bird staying in a class and hanging out, the competition that moves up from the class below, if in theory on paper should be, if you're in a certain class and the tier below you moves up, in theory that competition should be equal to or lower than you if you're in your right class, and eventually that bird will outcompete the birds that have moved up and naturally move itself up, or you've just got a donkey and it's gonna just hang out there, or it'll declass with the next bunch. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the mindset of where they're going with this, and over time it will work itself all out.
And people will still game this.
Yeah.
People will still
it's gonna happen. There's gonna be birds
down.
There's gonna be birds living in the 70 percentile every month.
Thing. For Crazy J to call it a skill to down class,
off my bird.
That's kind of funny. When people are trying to win, it's kind of easier to lose. So at the end of the day, you can only downclass so much when people are trying to win. If everybody's trying to lose, your downclassing now all of a sudden is just as hard as winning is.
But it's almost disincentivized to downclass, because you have to lose for a whole month, and you have to be in the bottom 20%.
Only to the qualifier.
You have to be in the bottom 20% for a whole month. If you don't think it's going to get competitive,
it's not a whole month.
What do you mean?
You've only got to be at the bottom 20% of the minimum.
But if you don't think it's not going to be competive, though, that's why I'm saying it can't be a pop number. It has to be a scale.
It's not going to be just you trying to go down.
This is why pop has to be a not percentage, because if I've kind of been thinking this in my head, I'm not sure if it's correct, but this is where my brain has gone. Every bird should start at 1,000 pop, and then move up or down from there.
Or zero. And you move negative, or
you can do negative numbers,
or just make it a point system. Get rid of the pop number altogether and make it a point system.
I agree.
But
that's what I'm leaning.
But the only thing I was getting at there is that you could run your 25 races, and you could have let's just do it your ways. It's easier. Negative 50 pop, and that qualifies you for the bottom 20%. Until everyone else keeps racing.
Exactly.
And now the threshold cut line is negative 75 pop. And you go, shit, now I need to race some more.
And I got to lose more money.
Yeah, but here's the thing. At some point, there's a stopping point there, because you're losing. So you're paying to lose. So
pecking order points.
It's only going to get so low.
Yeah.
Before somebody, so that there's going to be, maybe 10 over the minimum is all it's going to take to get into that lower, if you have done your downclassing right. The point is they're still not going to have to spend very much money to downclass if it's set low bar. Now, if they have to spend a lot, okay, I'm all for it. Lose all your money to try and win, you're going to end up breaking even.
That's the thing. It can't just be the pecking order points as we see it, because then there's zero competition in there, and you don't even know where the cutoff is, because everyone and their dog could be at 29 pop and advancing to the next class. You know, so it has to be a free floating scale, and it has to be a number system
too, so I can see
exactly.
Yes, and I think there will be.
And like I said, if you don't think there's going to be competition to be downclassing, that's going to have to keep you racing so you can stay competitive in the downclass.
I know downturn.
Plus the people who are also trying to lose to drop out of the top 20% so they don't get promoted.
Exactly.
So you got half your class trying to lose at the same time. It's going to make it hard to lose, as Blake likes to say.
That's why I'm saying it'll naturally work itself out, because you've also got the birds, like I said, after a month, you've got the birds that are good moving out, the birds from the class below moving in. You would think that they are at least equal to or less than your bird, and if they're all trying to lose to get out of there, you're not going to be losing very many races.
Here's my question. And I think what we're trying to, how does this help the low D birds now that aren't winning?
It
The
gets
top
all
20% of D leaves.
Yeah,
and then
Yes.
the bottom 20% of C comes back and replaces them and kicks their ass still.
Not necessarily, but it might
be there.
balance it out a little more.
Possibly,
but
but somebody
should-
has to be the worst.
There.
Right.
Yeah,
But
not
like
all
you-
bird
I
is
have-
created equally. There has to be shitters
Right,
out
right.
there.
There's
Some
that
birds are more equal.
don't win at a place at all
Right.
because of how the current system is.
Yeah, maybe you fuse those. You know, maybe that's where you jump in
That's
there.
why
But
yeah.
that's what I'm. The only thing I'm getting at there is those seabirds that are not good enough to stay in C and drop down to D. They'll be the birds that probably should be in
Crazy Jay, we just want to help your birds. That's what.
D.
Whatever
Hey,
it is on your birds, that's what we should.
Jay's got
set
some good D birds. That's the
we
problem.
should
Yeah.
we should set them to just.
We're just
whatever,
trying to help Cock Talk Blake.
whatever he wants.
Jay did say, "Why do we need to help the bottom D birds anyway?" And it's a fair enough point. I think that's. But
You're
I think
gonna
that's where-
have bottom D's are gonna eventually be no longer the bottom.
Well, they'll work it. They'll work its way up
How?
where it'll spread.
It's no different than S class won't ever get out of S class. If you're the top 20% in S class, you're still going to be there next month. What's
Unless
the
they can get into races with all of the ones that are lower than them.
Okay,
That's how the
so
one would go.
just for the sake of it, I'm gonna pop in right now. I have way too many birds in D class that have absolutely no business being there in the sense of it. You know, there's I have a 90 Sultan. I mean, for the most part, Sultans don't find themselves in D class. Usually doesn't happen. I have a 94 Cold Snap. That probably shouldn't be there. I have a Sarama. That shouldn't be there.
Right.
You know, a 94 striped white beak
So
is in there.
those-
Probably shouldn't be there. So and they
and
won't.
that's just
They'll
a
never be
handful.
there again.
I have a 96 dork hanging out in D.
Yeah, shouldn't be there. You know, it probably won't be there.
But here's the thing, like
based on how it runs, it
there's
should be.
97 donkeys out there that are stuck up in A and B that eventually you'd think, I don't know, would they make their way down that low if they're that bad? But here's the question, like you say, are the D birds in the bottom end, when are they going to get their support? There's going to be bad birds. And like Tyler said, maybe those are the birds that are supposed to be fused, because I feel like fusion has been something that's been a concept since day one, or else why would we have a Dr. Drew at all?
Yeah, Drew.
So and the number of birds being 33,333 in total, that's a lot of birds. So I mean, there's going to be a lot of shitters out there that if you fuse them potentially, and if you find the right fusion mate out there, maybe they do make a better bird in the end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's the thing, is that maybe it does. There's going to be losers. Again, this is
sure.
There's always going to be losers.
Has to be the loser.
Yeah, no doubt. But there'd be less losers in those lower range. And
I just think the birds that are really shit right now in D, like really shit, once it
like
balances itself out, once those top birds that are in D right now move up to C class, and yes, the bottom 20% of C moves into D, but maybe those birds are supposed to be there. That balance act of getting the top out and the bottom of the upper class in, that might create more, not necessarily going to create more wins, but maybe the podium percentage starts to creep up on your bird, and you start to see more variance and more wins and more podiums all around.
I think a bad D bird should hover around 20 pop, right? You're winning some. You're just not. You're going to lose more than you.
Some
win.
of mine are at 10 or 11.
And so I think they're at 10 and 11 because it's crammed full of birds that.
I think that's
it.
But I think
this is my point though. So when you bring those C birds down, and you bring those top D birds up to C, those are just going to flip back and forth in a cycle, month over month, right? Essentially.
Well, no, because they won't flip back. Because the thing, a lot of the ones that move up won't come back.
What?
Because they can't, because they're not supposed to be there. So long term they'll cycle.
But if they're there now, why couldn't they go back? What's different about it then versus now?
Just that birds are in the wrong spot right now.
Some birds will absolutely turn into yo-yo birds. 1 month in D, 1 month in C, back and forth, and that's how they're going to live.
But if they're incentivized to lose, they're going to try to lose, so they're going to yo-yo even more. This is
but if there's a B bird that's in D, it won't get back to D. I'm pretty sure of that. A bird that should be in B, and then maybe it does the yo-yo game between B and C, which is okay. I mean, yeah, we know that's going to happen. We're okay with that. But in the end, it's just going.
Okay.
It's going to work almost like the way a bubble hits. It moves its way up, and the cream rises, but then it hits and then flows back, and then it just starts. Then the middle starts working its way out. So it goes okay.
The first few months are going to be wild.
Top. Yeah, the great birds get the hell out of here and
the first few months are going to be wild until it starts to balance itself out. And then again, like I said, you're not going to see those birds that are dominant studs working their way back down, like Tyler says, because
most likely not.
The competition will eventually work itself out to where, it'll like I said, it'll just balance itself out eventually over time.
Yeah, and every system's going to struggle if most of the birds aren't racing.
That's and we're in beta still. We're still in the testing phase. This is going to happen. This is going to be it'll be growing pains along the way. Seasons, however, I think, are welcomed, but like I said, the first couple months, it's going to be a little while before we get a balance of the system and the birds in the right classes to where I think everybody will start to be happy after time.
And I'll just end it on this too. It is one last little piece about just this. When Crazy J said, do we really need to be incentivizing the bottom of D birds? And the reason I'd say yes in some fashion is that these are going to be a lot of people's first birds, and it's going to be the first birds they buy. It's going to be something low percentage, low perfection, something simple, and if they just get squashed, it doesn't work out.
But that's for breeding, you're going to have a lower end.
Yeah, right? That's where non-racing incentives also need to exist.
Yeah,
right.
Someone has to be the worst racer in the game.
Yes.
And it's probably my bird.
But once breeding starts happening, new bad racers should come into the game as well.
Yeah, it'll cycle, yeah.
And some of those birds will probably be unraceable.
But that's where it gets. I think that's where it gets weeded out with fusion, though. Like there's levels of there's bad birds of every perfection and every heritage. If you can weed out the bad ones and fuse them with other bad ones and make them, or not bad ones, I'm not saying bad overall, but just like if you can fuse poor performing birds that you feel you can't just figure them out, they've got 200 races, they've got 3 wins, and you feel like you've had them in the right spot and it's just not working out. Like there's duds in every class and every perfection of every heritage. It's just those birds I feel like are meant to eventually get figured out.
But if a 91
fused into something else and
cheaper to fuse, then it's like, okay, enough of this bird, fuse it.
And again, over time, the fusion mechanic, it's going to be hairy right away. And eventually I feel like that itself, again, will balance itself out to where if you have a bad bird and you know you've got a bad bird and you've got another bad bird, I mean, I would take the shot at fusing those two birds together and figuring it out. I mean,
especially once I've exhausted and found out that they're not great farmers and they're not great breeders. And
but that's kind of my dilemma. Do you wait till breeding or do you go ahead and fuse them? Because if they're bad racers, in my mind, I think, okay, well, shit, they got to be good at something.
Well, this is.
But that's where you have to be smart with your fusion. What if you take two birds that aren't great overall, but you know their preference is dirt? Right? Say you take 290 dorks and they're both dirt birds, but they don't really podium that well, and you fuse them together. They're still a dirt bird in the end. And
are they? But what? That's assuming that we know what dirt's based off of.
Yeah. See, I feel like fusion, you should know what you're going into to get, and breeding is the lottery.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it all turns out, though. Yeah. It's interesting either way.
Yeah, there's a lot of wait and see here.
It's been an hour and a half. I think we need to shut her down.
So much for a short episode.
Yeah.
Way past.
This has been Cock Talk this week. Yeah. You know, hanging out, talking, arguing, debating. Not arguing, just debating. But yeah, you can check us out in the Coop Collective Discord. We're also in the
Grateful Collective.
Shut up.
He's Grateful
Coop. In the Chicken Derby Coop Discord, I'm at Grateful Coops. I have at Pecking Order Racing and MBF Express and Water Racing.
I got demoted.
Well, you're in the third pool right now.
Oh shit, that's right. Anyway.
I don't have a sounder, so we're just gonna go. Jesus, Murphy.